Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Cooking for the Family. I'm Dyvonne. I hope everyone's doing well out there. I wanted to share with you 6 different of my meals using a box of spaghetti. And so I have all my wonderful spaghetti dishes all in one place for you. And in the description box below, I will have a list of all the ingredients you need to recreate these meals for yourself and for your family. And you can also have the recipes if you're just going to make it for 1 or 2 people. Are you ready? Let's get started. And welcome to my channel. I'm going to share with you how I make my cheesy spaghetti casserole. This is a great recipe if you want to feed a large family or if you're having company over. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using. I have some flour and I'm going to share with you how I make a quick cheese sauce. I have some spaghetti sauce, my noodles, some half and half, butter, Parmesan cheese. I have some chopped onions right there. I also have some nice Italian seasoning. I have some kosher salt, some black pepper, and I'm using ground turkey for my meal, but you can also use ground beef if you like. In my pan, I have 1 pound of ground turkey. I'm going to go ahead and brown this up. Once my ground turkey is nice and it's starting to brown up, I'm going to go ahead and add in my onion. I'm using a white onion, but you can also use a yellow onion if that's what you have on hand. And I'm using a half a cup of my chopped onion. And I chop my onion just about the size of, say, like a pea or a kernel of corn. Around about that size usually works really good. And you want to make sure if you're using whether ground beef or ground turkey to really break up your meat into like smaller, nice bite-sized pieces. Now once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm adding in a little bit of seasoning. For my seasoning, I keep it simple. I add in some kosher salt, and that was 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, and then I'm adding in some black coarse pepper, and that's 1/4 of a teaspoon of my black pepper. I go ahead and I stir everything all together. Now, because I'm using ground turkey, I'm not going to have like grease drippings that are going to be in the bottom. But if you're using ground beef, you want to go ahead and drain off any excess drippings that you have in your pan. Now to that, I went on and I added in my Italian seasoning, and the Italian seasoning I put in 1 teaspoon. Now I'm going to use 2 cans. Each of the cans are a 20-ounce can of spaghetti sauce or marinara sauce. This is a 20-ounce can of each, so I'm doing 40 ounces in total. Now you can use whatever sauce, whatever spaghetti sauce or marinara sauce that your family likes that you normally use to make your spaghetti. Definitely go ahead and use that, or you can use the one that I'm using. Now if you are new to my channel, welcome in, and if you're a returner, welcome back. And I want to thank all my wonderful subscribers for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, and your good vibe comments. I truly appreciate it. And if you are new to my channel, I hope you enjoy the content and consider subscribing. Now to my pot of boiling water, I put in a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt, and I'm using 1 package, which is 1 pound of regular spaghetti. I like to break my spaghetti in half. It's going to work better in the casserole than keeping the spaghetti whole. And I'm only going to cook my spaghetti till just al dente. So follow the back of the package of your spaghetti and cook it just to al dente. The spaghetti that I'm using, it's only going to take about 6 to 7 minutes for the spaghetti to be al dente. This is what the spaghetti is looking like. It is tender, but it's still got that nice al dente, which is to the tooth, and so it's got a little bit, still a little bit of structure to it. And because we're going to be baking our spaghetti in the oven, we do want to make sure that it's al dente so it doesn't get over baked. So our noodles are looking good. I went on and I drained them, and I take my drained spaghetti noodles and I add them directly to my pan of sauce. I went on and I turned the sauce off after it finished simmering for about that 10 minutes, and then I go ahead and I mix in the sauce and the spaghetti together. Once I have it pretty much mixed in together, you don't have to have it like totally mixed in together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but pretty good. I go ahead and I let that sit for a second. While that's sitting for a second, I get together my cheese sauce. Now this is just a basic white sauce that we're going to make, and we're going to turn it into a nice little cheese sauce. and this is going to go into our layers. So in my pot, I put in 4 tablespoons of butter, and you can use either salted or unsalted butter, either one is fine. And then I also put 4 tablespoons of regular all-purpose flour. I have my pan on a medium flame, so it's on a medium heat right now, and I go ahead and I mix in the flour and the butter together using my wooden spoon. And you want to keep mixing it just like I'm doing there, because we are dissolving that butter and the flour together. We're mixing, making sure that the butter and the flour become one. And I'm only going to let this cook for about 1 to 2 minutes, no longer than 3 minutes max, because we just want to cook off the raw flour taste, but we do not want to brown this. So we're not trying to turn it into like the peanut butter color that we would if we were making gravy. You want to have just a really nice pretty cream color, or a soft tan color is what you're looking for. Now once it's been about a couple of minutes, then I switch over to my wire whisk and I start whisking, and I'm pouring in my half and half. Now if you don't have half and half on hand, you can substitute the half and half with using regular milk. I suggest whole milk. The half and half is going to give it a nice richness, but if you have whole milk, you can definitely use whole milk as a substitute as well. It won't be as rich, but it still will be very good. And when you're pouring, whether it's the milk or the half and half, you want to continue to stir using your whisk. Do not stop stirring. If you stop stirring, what will happen is your butter and your flour that we had made nice and smooth, what will happen is it'll start to clump up on you. So as you're pouring in the half and half, you want to continue to do a constant stir. My flame is still on the medium heat. I'm still just stirring, and what's going to happen is our ingredients are going to start to thicken up, and you're going to create a nice thick cream sauce that we're going to be using as the base to put together our spaghetti and cheese casserole. And so I just keep whisking, whisk really good. The flame is still on that medium. Just keep on whisking just like that, and you're going to feel it to start to thicken up. And as you see, it's starting to really thicken. Now I'm going to switch over from my wire whisk, and I'm going to switch over from the wire whisk back to my wooden spoon, and I'm going to continue just to kind of mix it a little bit, just like that. And you see how you're starting to create some streaks in the pan? That's how you know that your cheese sauce is just about there, and it'll thicken up on you really quick. So I'm looking at it, it was creating those streaks in the pan, and I turned off my flame. And once you turn off your flame, then you want to add in some cheese, and that was a half a cup of Colby Jack cheese that I added in shredded. And remember, my flame is off. You want your flame to be off when you add in your cheese, or else it won't melt right. Your Colby Jack cheese won't melt right, and it'll be kind of grainy. Next, I added in 2 tablespoons of the Parmesan cheese, grated Parmesan cheese. I put in 2 tablespoons. I blend that in, and then I also added in some salt. Your salt is to your taste. For my salt, I put in a half a teaspoon of kosher salt to my taste. Now we want to go ahead and work quickly, because as our cheese sauce is cooling, it is continuing to get a little bit thicker. Now if your cheese sauce becomes too thick on you, you can add just a few more drops, either half and half or milk, either one of those that you're using. So I put in half of the spaghetti into my casserole dish. I'm using a 13x9 casserole dish. And then I layered in, and I put in half of my cheese sauce mixture that we just made. I'm going to go ahead and finish topping the cheese sauce with the other half of our spaghetti noodles and sauce. And while I'm doing this, I have my oven preheating on 350 degrees. Now in the description box below, under the title of the video, if you click on that where it says more, there'll be a list of ingredients that you need to make this wonderful cheesy spaghetti casserole. So now I put the other half of the cheese sauce that we made, I spread it all over from end to end. I like to then sprinkle mine with a couple of tablespoons of grated Parmesan cheese. Then after the Parmesan cheese, my last layer, which is my top layer, I put 1 cup of shredded Colby Jack cheese, and I go ahead and I just put it from end to end just like that. Then I'm going to cover my casserole with a piece of foil, and our casserole is going to bake covered in foil for about 25 minutes. I like to check it at around 15 to 18 minutes. Our cheese should be nice and melted and a little bubbly around the side. So our cheese is melted, our casserole baked for 25 minutes, but again, you want to check it at around about that 15-minute mark, 18-minute mark, just to kind of see how it's doing. I'm going to go ahead and serve us up some. It is cutting so nicely. It is nice and cheesy. It is looking so good. I want to get right under there so I can get all of our noodles up and onto our plate. Now my oldest son, he is not the biggest fan of spaghetti, but when I make it in a casserole, he absolutely loves it. And sorry for the knocking. The wind is blowing my shutters, so you might hear a little knocking here and there. Well, this is our casserole. It has baked up so nicely. It is looking good. I cannot wait to go ahead and give y'all the first bite. This first bite right here is for you. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. This casserole has come out so good, and I'm going to serve dinner tonight with a nice Caesar salad on the side. Well, that is it for me today. I invite you to hit that subscribe button. If you're not subscribed, it's free. Don't forget to show this video some love, give it a thumbs up, and click share, and share this video with a friend or family. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody. Italian cuisine is definitely my daughter's favorite. And through the years, I've learned to make many restaurant-style dishes that the family really enjoys. This is one that I cannot wait to share with you, how to make spaghetti carbonara. Are you ready? Let's get started. Now first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with our parsley, and I'm using curly Italian parsley. However, I usually like to use the flat leaf Italian parsley. They didn't have actually any in the store today, and so we're just going to go on and use the curly parsley as a substitute. We're going to have a nice handful, and this is going to end up being about a third of a cup up to about a half of a cup of the chopped parsley. We're going to garnish our dish with the parsley, and then we'll have a little left over to the side that we can just put on everybody's plates as well. Next, what I do is I mince my garlic, and I'm using 4 cloves of fresh garlic. Now, if your garlic pieces are really big, you have big garlic pieces, then you probably want to use 3. If they're more on the smaller side, then you can go on and use 5. But if you got about the average size of garlic, 4 garlic cloves will really do you. You just do a nice fine mince. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to get together our egg and cheese mixture together to make our carbonara. Our egg and cheese mixture is going to be 2 large eggs, and then we're also going to be using 2 egg yolks. Now, when we're putting together our carbonara base of the egg and the cheese mixture, you want to use a large bowl. The reason being is because we're going to really thoroughly blend and mix that egg and the cheese together. Now with the eggs, we're going to be whipping and blending our eggs first before we add our cheese into our eggs. Now with your eggs, you want to make sure that you whip them very, very well. You're going to make them nice and airy and light, very yellow. So take your time because you really want to incorporate some air at this point to your eggs, as well as you want to make sure that you have no streaks at all of any of the whites, just only the yolk, okay? And so this is going to also help your carbonara to be nice and creamy when it comes time to adding our egg mixture to our noodles. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to add some fresh, coarse black pepper. Now with the black pepper, you can add a half a teaspoon up to a teaspoon if you want it a little bit more peppery. And we're also going to be adding some Parmesan cheese. Now when it comes to the Parmesan cheese, we're going to be adding a half a cup of the grated Parmesan cheese. Now traditionally with carbonara, you would use Parmigiano Reggiano, like the kind that you would get in a tub that's freshly grated. But this is a recipe that I have just adapted to doing with the ingredients that we have at home. We always have our little shaker grated Parmesan cheese. I use that and it works very well. So in our bowl, we have our egg, we have our cheese, and we also have our black pepper. Be sure to whisk everything together very well. We're going to set that aside and we're going to work on our chicken breast. I have 2 large chicken breasts. that I have rinsed and patted dry, and we are going to be using our kitchen shears, and I'm just going to go on and cut them, the chicken breast, into bite-sized pieces. This just makes it really quick to just go on and dice up the chicken breast. We're going to do about the size of, say, like about the size of a nickel, but no bigger than a quarter, because when we do cook our chicken breast, it will shrink down a bit, so it's going to end up being a little bit smaller than what we're cutting the raw pieces here. Now, also adding the chicken to your carbonara is totally optional. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome, and if you're a returner, welcome back. And I want to thank all my wonderful subscribers for your likes, your shares, your subscribes, your thumbs up, and your good vibe comments. I appreciate y'all so much, and I am just so excited to see my little channel grow. And it has truly been my pleasure to share with all y'all what I cook and bake for my family in my kitchen. So once we have our 2 chicken breasts all nice and cut up, what we're going to do next is we're going to go on and put some seasoning, and we're just going to season our chicken breast with salt and pepper. The salt and pepper is going to be to your taste, but in the description box below, I will have a list of all the ingredients you need to make this delicious, wonderful pasta carbonara. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you how to put it all together. So once we have our seasoning, which is our salt, and I like to use kosher salt, our kosher salt and our pepper, go on and give everything a nice stir. Now we're going to set our chicken breasts aside, and we're going to work on our thick cut bacon. You want to use thick cut bacon. Now traditionally with carbonara, you would use pancetta. Now, pancetta is not something that everyone can always easily find in the grocery store, so a great substitute is the thick cut bacon. And you want to have your slices, your pieces about like that, about say in size of like maybe a dime or so, no bigger than that. And I'm just going to go on and dice up the 4 pieces of thick cut bacon. Now, when it comes to your bacon, you can use either the applewood smoked bacon or the hickory smoked bacon. I've used them both, and they both work very, very well. But if you can find pancetta, definitely go on and grab yourself some pancetta, and I will put that information in the description box below as well. So in my pan, I'm putting 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Now to that, we're going to go on and add our chicken that we had diced up. We're going to cook our chicken first. Now, when you are cooking your chicken breast, you want to make sure that you don't overcook your chicken breast, because you don't want to dry it out. You're going to cook your chicken breast until it is just, it goes from being like really soft and kind of squishy in the center when you're pressing on it to being really firm. You're going to have nice firm chicken breast, and that's going to be in the middle of the pieces that you're cooking. And you're just going to kind of go on and saute it just like that till it's not pink anymore and there's some firmness when you push on it. That's when you know that your chicken is done, when you have that bit of firmness right there when you're pushing on your chicken. And when you're making your pasta carbonara, you want to use a pan that has high sides like I'm using right now. Also, I'm going to go on and cook the chicken in 2 batches because you don't want to steam your chicken. You do want to saute it a bit. So you want to be mindful not to overcrowd your pan when you're cooking your chicken. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start on our bacon. And remember, we're using the 4 pieces of thick cut bacon that we've cut into pieces. And what we're going to do with the bacon is, the goal is that you want to render down your bacon. So we're not going to be trying to overly brown it and make it super crispy. Having your flame on a medium heat like I have right now really works best to render down your bacon like we need to continue to make our carbonara. So also you want to have your pieces nice and flat, and then later we'll mix them around. So in my pot of simmering water, I put 2 teaspoons of salt, because we're going to salt our pasta water, and then I go on and I turn my flame on my water to get it nice and boiling. Now when we're about at this point, go on and just mix your bacon around that you have in your pan. You want to make sure that you continue to render it down. It's not ready yet, so you need to make sure that you continue to saute it and render it down. We don't want to have any white pieces at all. Now we're going to go on and add our pasta, our spaghetti that we're using to our boiling water. So when it comes to your pasta and your bacon, it's about timing for sure. So once our bacon had started to brown a bit, then that's when we go on and we start on our spaghetti. Now, We're going to cook our spaghetti to al dente, and you do not need to add any oil to your pasta water while it's cooking, because we want our sauce to adhere to our noodles. And if the water is oily, that's not going to happen with your pasta when you make it. And so now see how our bacon is looking? It's rendered down. It's nice and brown, just like that. We don't have any burnt pieces, but it's rendered down and it's nice and brown. Now we put in those 4 cloves of garlic that we had minced, and we're going to saute our garlic all around. You're only going to saute your garlic and let it cook for about 40 seconds up to about 60 seconds, just to about a minute. You don't want to brown your garlic, but you do want to release all its nice fragrance and go in and saute it. Once you've sauteed your garlic and it's been about a minute, maybe a little less than a minute, then our spaghetti should be nice and al dente, and we're going to be adding our spaghetti directly to our pan. Now, with your pasta, you want to make sure that you reserve yourself at least 3 cups of the pasta water. And it's important to cook your spaghetti just to al dente, because as you see, we're going to continue to saute and cook our spaghetti in our pan that we had. I go in and I turn off my flame. I have my pasta water that's to the side. Once you have your pasta all in there, all the spaghetti, go in and mix everything around. At this point, I have my pan is on a low heat, okay? So now we add our egg and cheese mixture. Once I've added all the egg and cheese mixture to the pan, what I do is I turn my flame off on my pan. I go on and turn it off. We're going to go on and mix our egg and cheese mixture around. We have that residual heat from the hot pasta, the residual heat from the pan, and so we're going to be using that to start to cook that nice cream sauce that we have with the egg and the cheese. Now when our spaghetti is looking like this, our carbonara, it's going to be looking thick. This is when you add the nice starchy pasta water that we have, our cooking pasta water. That's why it's important that you want to reserve it. And you see how it starts to loosen up, and we're creating this nice creamy sauce. So once I start doing this and I'm creating this nice creamy sauce, then I went on and I turned my flame back on a nice low heat. Okay, so you want to turn it off at a certain time when you first add your egg mixture. And then once you've mixed your egg mixture around and you've added that nice pasta water that we have, and I added just a little bit at a time. You want to add it to you get the consistency that you're looking for, usually about a cup. Then we go on and we add our chicken. And again, the chicken is optional, but we really like to have our chicken in our carbonara. And so I just kind of mix everything around. Now, when I get to this point, I tell the family, hey, dinner's ready, because the sauce is going to continue to thicken. And so you want to make sure you have pasta water to the side as well. But it is nice and creamy and it is ready. We sprinkle on a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm going to also, once I sprinkle on with the Parmesan cheese, what I like to do is I just like to kind of mix the cheese around just a little bit and get it like worked down there into the noodles just like that. And it's just looking so good. It's smelling like so good in the kitchen. We're going to go on and garnish it with our nice chopped parsley we have. I'm going to go on and serve us up some, and we're going to see how we did. This is our wonderful carbonara that we have made today in the kitchen. You see that beautiful cream sauce that we made in the pan. It is looking so good. I cannot wait to give this a try. But you know what, y'all? I have been making this for the family for years, and so I know it's going to be good. And I've made a nice Caesar salad to go with it. There you go. There's your bite right there. It's a mouthful, y'all. Go ahead, give it a try. Okay, I'm going to go on and give it a try. Yeah, oh my goodness. This is so good, y'all. And we just made this from things that we have right in our kitchen, our ingredients, with the egg, that Parmesan cheese that we have in the canister. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this comes together so nicely with the spaghetti, and then you add that chicken on top as well. This is a beautiful meal. Well, I hope you give this recipe a try. Today, I'm going to share with you how to make 2 recipes in one video. I'm going to share with you how I make my homemade pasta sauce and how I make my homemade Italian meatballs. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using. In the description box below, I'm going to have a list of ingredients for your reference, but as always, what I'm going to share with you is how to take those list of ingredients and put them together to make a wonderful family meal. So first what I do is I start off with my onion, and I'm using a yellow onion, but if you happen to only have a white onion on hand, you can use that. And you're going to be using a medium onion. My onion was more on the large side, so I'm not going to be using all of it, but about 1.5 cups of onion is typically what you want to use. About 1.5 cups, 1 3/4 cup, not too much, because the more onion you use will kind of overpower your sauce, so about 1.5 cups will do you. Now when it comes to the garlic, I go ahead and mince my garlic, and also with the onion, I like to chop mine about the size of, say, like a dime, maybe a little bit smaller than that, but not too much larger than a dime. So we want to have those nice pieces that are going to be in our sauce. Now with the garlic, you want to use about 4 to 5 cloves of garlic. Go ahead and mince that. Now after I mince the garlic, I'm going to set the garlic and onion aside, and I have some fresh parsley. Now I'm using fresh flat leaf parsley, and actually this parsley came from my herb garden. So I'm using my fresh parsley from the herb garden. Now if you don't have fresh parsley on hand, you can definitely use dried parsley, as well as we're going to be using some dried basil. I've used fresh basil, I've used dried basil in the recipe. Kind of depends on, what I have on hand at the time. In the description box below, I will put if you're using the fresh parsley versus dried, as well as basil if you're using fresh basil versus dried basil. So I like to get started building my sauce first, my pasta sauce. And so I've gone on and I've put in some extra virgin olive oil in my pot. This is a 6.5 quart pot that I'm using. So about 2 to 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil is what you want to use. I'm going to start off first by sauteing my onions until they become nice, soft, and translucent. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome in. And if you're a returner, welcome back. My name is Dyvonne, and on my channel, I love to share what I cook and bake for my family in my kitchen. I do from scratch recipes, semi-homemade. I love doing box cakes and doctoring those up, as well as baking cakes from scratch. So if you enjoy that kind of content, I hope you consider subscribing. So once I've gone on and I've sauteed the onion and it's nice and soft, and you want to be mindful when you're sauteing your onion that you don't have your flame up too high, because we don't want to brown our onion or caramelize it at all, because then our sauce will take on a totally different flavor profile. So I usually like to saute my onion on a medium to medium low heat, just nice and soft. We just want our onions to get nice and soft and not browned. Then I go ahead and I add in the garlic. The garlic is just going to take about a minute or so. Now I'm going to put in some dried basil. Now if I were using my fresh basil, I would put the fresh basil at the end. But I'm using the dried basil, and with the dried basil, I really want to bloom those spices. And so the dried basil, I put in 1.5 teaspoons of the dried basil. I'm going to go ahead and bloom my spices. And this only is just going to take a couple of minutes. And I like to get my pasta sauce going so that way it can really start to simmer and the flavors really start to come together, because good pasta sauce, it takes a minute to really just simmer and for all the wonderful flavors to come in. Now I don't know if y'all can hear, there is a bird outside my window and it's just having the best day ever. So if you hear there's a bird just singing and having a grand time outside my window right now, I think it's a blue jay, possibly. It looks blue. For my sauce, I'm using a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, and I'm also going to be using, and this is the crushed tomatoes. Now, when it comes to the brand, you can use whatever brand, works best for you, whatever brand that you like. I happen to gravitate towards this brand more because I found it's not as acidic, and so it works best for us. And so that's the one that I usually prefer to use. Now, I'm going to use the 120-ounce can of crushed tomatoes, and I'm also going to be using 120-ounce can of tomato puree as well. Now, I like to use the crushed tomatoes because it just gives a little bit of texture to the sauce. You can also, if you want to use 2 cans of tomato puree, you can use just 2 cans of the tomato puree, but I like to do 1 can of crushed tomatoes, which is a 28-ounce can, and 1 can of the tomato puree. And just to be clear, both cans are 28 ounces. I realized that I may have said 20 ounce a moment ago, but just to be clear, both cans that I used are both 28 ounces. Then I go ahead and I put in my chopped parsley, and that was 1/4 of a cup of chopped parsley. I'm going to put the top on my pot, put my flame on a medium to high heat, let my pot come up to a nice rolling boil with the sauce. Then we're going to turn it down to a low and let it simmer. While my sauce is cooking, I'm going to prepare my meatballs. In my bowl, I have 1.5 pounds of ground beef, and this is a lean ground beef, and you can also use ground turkey if you like. And I put in 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt, and I'm putting in 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. So that was 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, and I'm also going to put in some kosher salt. I'm putting in 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And when it comes to forming the meatballs, I'm going to share with you the easiest way I found to form nice, perfectly round meatballs. I'm using Italian style breadcrumbs. You can also use plain breadcrumbs as well, and I'm using 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. We're going to put in some grated Parmesan cheese, and we're putting in 1/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan cheese and 1 tablespoon of fresh chopped parsley. So again, in our bowl, we have 1.5 pounds of ground beef, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. We have 1/2 cup of Italian breadcrumbs, 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, 1 tablespoon of fresh chopped parsley, and I just put in 1 large egg, and my egg is at room temperature. Now for my little secret ingredient, I put a little bit of water. This is 3/4 of a cup of warm water that I add to my mixture for my meatballs. What the warm water does, it actually helps to have our meatballs be nice and tender. And so that was 3/4 of a cup of warm water. You don't want your water to be hot, just warm water or just room temperature water will also work. And then once I have those ingredients all in, I mix everything together. And remember, you want your egg to also be at room temperature. That room temperature egg is going to blend really well into all the ingredients. Now once I blend everything with my spoon and I move to the best utensils I have, that's the nice clean hands, because we want to make sure we don't have pockets of ingredients, that everything is mixed and blended in well together. You want to really fold and smush your meat. I like to call it smushing. You just smush it really good, and just like that, you just go ahead, fold it over, smush it from the bottom to the top, almost like you're doing like a dough, and you're just going to really make sure that those ingredients are blended well. Now to form my meatballs, I use my ice cream scooper. And so just a regular standard ice cream scooper, and what I do is I scoop up the meat, and then I press it, make sure it's nice and even, and I very gently, without pressing, very gently roll it in the palm of my hands. Now any little creases that you have, it's important that you want to pinch those creases together, just like you see me doing there. The reason is because those little creases will become bigger cracks once we go to cook our meatballs, and then your meatball will open, okay? And so to keep your meatball a nice round solid ball, it's important that you do want to just pinch those little creases that you see in your meatball when you're forming them. And again, just want to press your meat mixture into your ice cream scooper. Make sure that you want to press it. That's kind of compacting it, and then you want to roll it between your hands and pinch any of those little creases, and be really gentle, because our mixture is very tender because we added that water to it, and so it's going to have a nice tender meatball. And this way you want to roll it, pinching those creases. Our meatballs will hold together nicely. And you're going to get from this recipe 16 meatballs, and this is going to be enough for a family of 5 to 6, 7 people. This is going to be plenty of meatballs and sauce and noodles that we're going to make to feed 5, 6, 7 people. You can also make your meatballs a little bit smaller if you like, but this is a really good size. I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands up. I'm going to check on our sauce to see how it's doing. Our sauce, I had went on and turned it down from, it was boiling, and I went on and I turned it down to a simmer. So it went from that medium high heat to a medium low heat. I went on, put the top fully onto my pot, Let it go ahead and simmer. Our sauce is looking so good. I'm going to go ahead and taste it for seasoning. If I need to add a little bit more salt, you can also add pepper. And also, if you want to have a little bit of a spicy or zesty pasta sauce, you can add in some crushed red pepper flakes. And you can add that in to your taste, to your liking. Likewise with the meatballs, if you want to have a spicy meatball, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes will make your meatballs a little bit spicy. I added in a half a teaspoon of kosher salt to our sauce. We're going to let our sauce continue to simmer. For our meatballs, I'm using extra virgin olive oil in my pan, and we're going to cook our meatballs just a few minutes per side. This is going to give just a slight crust on our meatballs, and it also keeps them holding together nicely. And so just a few minutes per each side. And I have my flame on a medium heat because I don't want my meatballs to brown up too fast. And so I just want like that nice coloring. And you see what it's looking like? And then also when you're turning your meatballs, be gentle. And I just turn them just like that. And so we're going to let them go ahead and go. Then what I do is I take my meatballs and we're going to transfer our meatballs over to our sauce. And that's why we started our sauce earlier before starting our meatballs, so our sauce could have a chance to simmer, come together, full of flavor. Now after our meatballs have cooked about 3 minutes or so per side, we're going to transfer them over into our sauce, and we're going to let our meatballs simmer in the sauce and continue to cook, because right now they're only going to be about 10%, 15% cooked right now. And so we want to go ahead and finish gently cooking our meatballs in our sauce. And that's going to take anywhere from about 30 to 40 minutes. Now my homemade pasta sauce, I use it many different ways. I use it for when I want to make my homemade spaghetti and meatballs from scratch, my homemade pasta bake, when I also make my homemade from scratch lasagna. So I have a wonderful lasagna recipe and vlog, and I'll make sure that I put that link to that vlog in the description box below, as well as when I do my pasta bake and I do that. And so this sauce is also a sauce that I make if I make homemade pizza. I'll use this when I want to make homemade pizza, and it also freezes really well. And so I also will freeze it, and so when I want to have some homemade pizza and I want to have my homemade sauce to go with it, I'll go ahead and take that out of the freezer. And so the sauce is very versatile, and so I can kind of dress it up and change it up any different ways that I like. And so in the description box below, though, I'll put some other recipes that I've used my sauce for. So I have my boiling water. To my water, I add a little bit of salt to the boiling water for our pasta, which is going to be our spaghetti. It's been about 30 minutes or so. Our meatballs should be just about done. I'm going to cook my spaghetti al dente. Also, to go with our spaghetti dinner tonight, I'm making a nice fresh garden salad with some cucumbers and tomatoes, lettuce, croutons, and so it's going to be a really nice meal. And for dessert, I made a flourless chocolate cake, so be sure to look for that vlog coming very soon on how I made this homemade flourless chocolate cake. Well, our spaghetti is looking great. It is cooked up al dente. Let me check on our meatballs. Oh, look at those meatballs. And the kitchen smells so good. It smells just like our own little Italian restaurant. Well, I am going to put our plate together of our spaghetti and our meatballs. And to finish everything off, I just like to sprinkle a little bit of that fresh parsley right into our pot. This is our plate. I'm going to get y'all the first bite. Y'all are my guests, so I hope you have been enjoying spending time with me in my kitchen. And we made our meatballs with ground beef, but you can surely make them with ground turkey if you prefer. And just look how they cut. They cut so nice, so tender. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. Oh my goodness. These meatballs do not disappoint. They are full of flavor. Now we have to try our spaghetti and our sauce. And if you just want to make like meatball sandwiches, you can definitely use this recipe and make you some nice meatball sandwiches. I should have got my spoon. Go ahead and take your bite of spaghetti. Now I'm going to take my bite. This dinner, oh my gosh. I hope you give this recipe a try. 2 recipes in one vlog: how to make homemade pasta sauce and how to make homemade Italian meatballs. How to make this cherry tomato pasta. These are the ingredients. All of these nice fresh ingredients make a delicious simple sauce that goes so well with this spaghetti pasta. We have our nice fresh basil, some cherry tomatoes. We're going to be using our spaghetti noodles, some extra virgin olive oil, and some kosher salt. And of course, we've got our garlic. And what we're going to do first is we're going to be using 5 cloves of garlic for our recipe. Now, if you have ever had just delicious simple pasta, this pasta does not need a lot of sauce. The impact of flavor is all from the sauce that we're going to make using these nice fresh ingredients. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And if you're a returner, welcome back. And I want to thank you for all your wonderful likes, shares, subscribes, comments, and questions on my videos. And if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, I invite you to hit that subscribe button and become one of my wonderful subscribers, where I share what I cook and bake in my kitchen for my family with you. Now, with our garlic, you want to make sure that you chop up your garlic like this. We're not going to do a fine mince. You don't want a fine mince. You want it in kind of chunky pieces when you're chopping up your garlic, and you can even slice your garlic if you like. Okay, and now next what we're going to do is we're going to get our nice fresh basil. Now, I usually have my garden, and I have my herbs, my parsley, my basil, my cilantro. My garden has not come to bloom just yet, and so I just went on and I got this nice fresh basil from the store, and we're going to be using, you want about 1/3 to about 1/2 of a cup. So anywhere from 1/3 of a cup up to 1/2 a cup of nice fresh basil that we are going to chop. And we're going to also rinse our basil off in some nice cold water. And this is about maybe 40 or so leaves of basil that I have right here. Once we've rinsed our basil with some nice cold water, I'd like to go on and put them on a paper towel. You want to dry your leaves really good. The reason being is it's just going to be easier when you go to slice and chop up your basil. That's going to be easier if they're as dry as possible. Okay, and so once I do this, I just kind of put it between a couple of napkins just like that, and just kind of flip the leaves over. This is like something that's a simple step, but you know, when you are slicing and you're cutting your basil, it does make a difference, so that way you're not having to deal with a bunch of wet leaves. Okay, and I just gather my basil, and I just take my knife, and we're just going to do a rough chop and go all the way through the basil. Then we're going to end up with some long strips, maybe some short ones. And also, we're going to be using half the basil that we're going to put right in our sauce as we're making it, and then we're going to use the other half of the basil that we're chopping up. We're going to save that for a garnish on top. Now, I have my pot is boiling, my water is boiling nice and good. I'm going to put in a couple of teaspoons of kosher salt. And we're going to cook our spaghetti pasta. We're going to cook it according to the box directions, because we're going to cook it till al dente, because we're going to continue to cook the pasta with the sauce once we get to that step. Now, also, you can use spaghetti noodles like I'm using. You can use also thin spaghetti noodles, or either you can use angel hair pasta. Any of those 3 pastas work really good with this sauce. Once we get our spaghetti noodles going really good, I'm going to show you how to make the sauce. Now also, once the spaghetti is done cooking, you want to reserve 1 cup of the cooking liquid. And we do this just in case we need to add any additional liquid to our sauce. You want to keep that 1 cup of that nice pasta water. And I do that anytime that I'm making pasta and I'm making like a homemade sauce. I always like to reserve at least a cup of that nice pasta water, okay? Now, when we make our sauce, we're going to be using 1/4 of a cup of extra virgin olive oil. Now, in the description box below, I will have a list of all the ingredients you need to make this delicious pasta with the cherry tomato sauce. We're going to also put in our 5 cloves of garlic that we had chopped up earlier, and I have my flame on low. The reason is you do not want your garlic to burn. You want to saute your garlic for about 30 or 40 seconds. And then after you do that, we're going to add in our cherry tomatoes. And we're going to add in the cherry tomatoes whole. And we're using 4 cups of cherry tomatoes, which is the same as using 2 pints. Now, once I add in my cherry tomatoes, what I do is I raise my fire up to a medium, like a medium low, and then I just go on and saute around. What we're doing is you want your cherry tomatoes to soften up because we want to really try to release all of the juices. And what's going to happen is that your tomatoes on the side will split a little bit. When some of your tomatoes start to split a little bit, you know that they're starting to get nice and soft. And what we're going to do when it gets to that point, you want to use the back of your spoon, just like I'm doing there, and just kind of be really gentle and just kind of push and smash your tomatoes so that way you start to release all that wonderful juice that is inside the tomatoes. And some are going to be firm and some are going to be starting to be soft where we can go on and just smash them just like that. And when you're done, you're going to end up, as you're cooking and sauteing the garlic and the olive oil in your tomatoes, you're going to be releasing those juices are what's going to make our sauce, our nice cherry tomato pasta sauce. And this is so full of flavor. These cherry tomatoes are nice and ripe and they're so full of so good flavor. Now, as our sauce continues to build and our tomatoes continue to get nice and soft and we continue to let the sauce simmer just like it's doing now, we're going to add in some kosher salt. And we're going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. Once we put the kosher salt in, we're going to saute our sauce. We're going to let it continue to also simmer. And it is smelling so good in the kitchen. It smells like an Italian restaurant. I kid you not, with the garlic, the olive oil, those tomatoes. Oh my goodness. And so once it's looking like this, y'all, I just checked to see if we have any more whole tomatoes. You want to make sure that you've crushed all of those. We're going to put in some of this crushed red pepper flakes, and we're only going to be using 1/4 teaspoon. Now this is optional, but that little zing, that little extra something that those red pepper flakes brings to the sauce is really, really good. And so then we put in a little bit of our basil that we had chopped up, because we're only going to put in half of that chopped up basil. The other half we're going to save. We're going to garnish it on top of our pasta once we add our pasta in. So everything is looking great. Our spaghetti has cooked up nice and al dente, and we're just going to finish off of our spaghetti. We're going to put it right inside of our sauce. Our sauce is simmering, and what we want to have happen is our spaghetti, our pasta, is going to soak up all that wonderful flavor of the garlic and the olive oil, the tomatoes, how we nicely sauteed that fresh basil. All those wonderful Italian spices and seasonings are just going to soak into our pasta. And when you're adding your pasta to your pan, you want to make sure that you are rotating that sauce that's from the bottom, rotate it around to the top, so that way all of our pasta gets coated with our sauce. Then we're going to add in some Parmesan cheese. And so this is regular shredded Parmesan cheese that I'm adding. And this is a tub of a 5-ounce tub. And I added 1/3 cup of that Parmesan cheese right to the pasta. My pan is still on. I have it on low because I do want that cheese to start to melt, that nice Parmesan cheese. We want it to start to melt and blend in with the pasta as well. And then I garnish a little bit more on top, and that's about another 1/3 cup that I'm just going to sprinkle right on top. Then we have our basil as well, and so I sprinkled on the basil, that other half of the basil that we had, and that is our cherry tomato pasta that we have made. And I'm going to go on and serve us up some. I'm going to see how we did. Well, here is our pasta that we have made for dinner tonight for the family. We have all those wonderful fresh ingredients in there of those cherry tomatoes, the Parmesan cheese, the garlic, the olive oil, the basil. Oh my, it smells so good. Okay, let's just see how we did. Oh my, and I'm going to make a salad tonight. We're going to pair a nice salad with this. And as a bonus, I'm going to share with you how I make a really quick and simple salad and a simple dressing. But this bite right here, y'all, this bite is for you. Go on and take your bite and let's see how we did. Oh, it looks so good. Okay, let me see how we did, y'all. Oh, this pasta, y'all, it is so simple. It is not fancy. It is not saucy, but it is so good. The flavor, the garlic, the olive oil, that basil, the tomatoes. This dish is such a winner, and I just love the simplicity of it all. Well, I'm going to share with you how I make a nice quick salad dressing for the salad that's going to go with our dinner tonight. And it's really simple. So I have my blend, my little salad blend that I have there. I have some cucumbers, those are English cucumbers, and I have a Roma tomato that I've chopped up. Now to my salad, I'm going to add, I haven't added any dressing. This is my quick dressing I do. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. And you want to use kosher salt, and I'm using coarse kosher salt. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of black pepper. If you have some fresh cracked black pepper, that's even better. So, but I add a little bit of black pepper, and this was about 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And then we have a lemon tree, and it's been giving lemons like crazy, and so I use lemon. And so we're going to be using 1/2 a lemon, and I squeeze 1/2 a lemon, and then I drizzle on about 1 tablespoon to 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, and that's that extra virgin olive oil. And I just go on and I mix this up. This makes a nice light dressing. It goes so good with our pasta for tonight. And something else that a lot of times that I'll also make with the pasta is I'll do a nice grilled chicken breast as well on the side. And so we'll have a grilled chicken breast, we'll have the salad, and we'll also have the pasta. Now also in the description box below, I will have a list of the ingredients if you would like to also make this really quick salad dressing for you and your family. Well, that is it for me today, y'all. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I invite you to hit that subscribe button. It's free. And if you like this video and appreciate the content, go on and show it some love and give it a thumbs up. And click share and share this video with a friend or family. And it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody. And today I'm going to share with you how I make my pasta primavera. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using. This is a nice meal, especially if you want a nice meatless meal, but you want it to be pretty hearty, something the whole family will enjoy. This is definitely a meal that ticks all those boxes. These are the vegetables that I like to use in my pasta primavera, but I'll also share with you some other vegetables that you can also use. For my zucchini, I like to cut them about 1/2 inch, but no smaller than 1/4 inch in thickness. And I'm going to be using 2 zucchini that I went on and I cut total. I have some baby bella mushrooms that I'm going to use. And with my mushrooms, what I like to do is I rinse them off really quickly in cold water, not for very long because the mushrooms will absorb the water. But then I take my damp cloth and just with my damp napkin, and I go through and I wipe off any of that excess dirt that sometimes lingers on the mushrooms. And so definitely you want to use that nice damp cloth. Now I like to cut my mushrooms myself because I want to keep the sizes about that 1/2 inch to about 1/4 inch in thickness, but you can also definitely buy them pre-sliced. This is an 8-ounce package of mushrooms of the baby bella that I'm using. And this is right around that thickness that I like to cut my mushrooms. Now, if you don't care for mushrooms, you can leave them out of the recipe. But I find the mushrooms really help to add to the meatiness of the dish. And I'm using the baby bella that I had mentioned, but you can also use the cremini mushrooms as well. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome in. Thank you for stopping by. And if you're a returner, thank you for coming back. I hope you enjoy sharing what I'm cooking and baking in my kitchen. And if you like just simple recipes, some old school recipes, I hope you consider subscribing. So next I also have here, we're going to go ahead and chop up some asparagus. Now the asparagus, I'm using just 1 bundle of asparagus, and we're going to be cutting them just to about that point, not the full asparagus, because at the bottom it gets kind of tough and it's not easy to eat. And so we're going to be just cutting about 3/4 of the asparagus, and I cut them about in 2-inch pieces. And another vegetable that really works well is string beans. So if you love string beans, if you're a fan of string beans, you can add the string beans in addition to the asparagus, or you can leave the asparagus out, because the pasta primavera is a nice springtime dish. So it's all the nice spring vegetables with some other vegetables that are just nice and fresh at the grocery store. Now with the tomatoes, I'm using grape tomatoes. If you can find cherry tomatoes work really well, but sometimes the cherry tomatoes aren't always available at the store. So either grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes. And so I just used the one bundle, and I believe that one bundle was about an 8-ounce bundle of the tomatoes, how they come. And then I also went on and I minced my garlic, and that was 4 cloves of garlic. So those are all my vegetables. Another vegetable you can also use is peas. Peas work really well. And so in the description box below, I will put a list of all the ingredients you need to make this dish. And then I'll also put some alternatives like spinach and some other things that you can add in here, kind of based on your liking. So in my pan, I went on and I put in some vegetable oil, and that was about 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil. And I also put in 2 tablespoons of butter. With the butter, you can use either salted or unsalted butter. And so once the olive oil got going, I went on and added the 2 tablespoons of butter, and then I added the 2 zucchini that we had gone on and chopped up. So I get my zucchini going, and as we're making our pasta primavera, we'll be seasoning it as we go, and I'm seasoning it with some kosher salt. So I'll just put a couple of pinches of kosher salt, usually after each vegetable that I add to my pot. When I'm making this meal, I like to add my vegetables into my pot one at a time. So first I start with the zucchini, then I put in the asparagus. And the reason why I like to put my vegetables in like one at a time, wait, let it just nice and saute for about 3 to 5 minutes, and then add the next vegetable in, is because if I add in everything at one time, what happens is instead of me being able to saute the vegetables, it starts to more steam and just like get like a lot of liquid in my pot. And so just a little bit at a time. Then you see I went on and I put in a little bit more of the kosher salt, and I also added in some red pepper flakes. The red pepper flakes really give the dish a nice like zing to it. And so with the red pepper flakes, you can put just a little bit more to boost up the spiciness, but just a couple of pinches just really brings that flavor home with all the nice fresh veggies in there. And so I put that kosher salt in there. I put just a couple of pinches of the red pepper flakes, and the kosher salt and the red pepper flakes, you want to do it to your taste. Now next, once it's been going for about maybe 8 minutes now, my pot's been going, I go ahead and I add in my mushroom, and I start to saute my mushroom around. Now my flame, I have it on about a medium high heat, but you don't want it like on a really high heat, because you do want to kind of just, cook the vegetables. You don't want anything to burn, and you just want to bring out all those nice fresh flavors that you have. I'm going to add in another pinch of my coarse kosher salt. Now if you don't have any coarse kosher salt, sea salt works nicely, or the Himalayan salt, that's coarse, works nicely. But if you only have table salt, just use just a tiny pinch of table salt. If you only have table salt available, just a tiny pinch as you're going through and seasoning up your vegetables. And you're also going to see where that you're going to start to get some liquid. It's going to start to come gradually off of your vegetables as they saute, and so that little bit of that nice flavor that we're building in the pot. And so next what I do is I have my garlic that we minced, and that was 4 cloves of garlic. I go ahead, add the 4 cloves of garlic to those juices that have started to form from our vegetable sauteing. We're going to cook our minced garlic in those juices that's in our pot. Now if you need a little bit more juice, you can always add olive oil to your pan, but I find that I end up having plenty of juice that comes off of my vegetables, and I'm able to saute my garlic with that. So I have here 1 pound of spaghetti noodles. You can also use thin spaghetti noodles. I'm using regular spaghetti noodles. You can use also penny pasta to make your pasta primavera. I seasoned my pasta water with just a couple pinches of salt, and then you also want to cook it till al dente. So whether you're cooking the spaghetti noodles or you're cooking the penny pasta for your pasta primavera, you're going to cook it till al dente. Now the last vegetable that I put in is going to be my tomatoes that I had sliced in half. And I do the tomatoes last because I want the tomatoes to keep their shape as best as possible. Some will break down and end up in the sauce, and you do want that, but then you do want some of them to stay whole. You can also use the grape tomatoes or the cherry tomatoes that also are yellow. Those make a wonderful addition also with the colors. And so actually just a dish like this is wonderful to have. Just a dish like this with, if you're going to have something else on the side with it, like some chicken or something, just these vegetables, how we did, they're wonderful. Next, I put in 1 cup of heavy cream, and it can say heavy cream or the carton might say heavy whipping cream. Either one of those will work fine. And this is 1 cup of the heavy cream. Now when I added in the heavy cream, right before it was time for me to add in, I went on and I turned my flame off. And then I added in the heavy cream. And the reason why I did that is because sometimes when you have a hot pot and your flame is on, and then you add your cream, sometimes your cream will curdle. And so just turn your flame off like I did. I add the heavy cream. After I added the cream, then I went on and I turned my flame back on, and I have it on a low, and it's going to just simmer right now. So my spaghetti is ready, and so I take my spaghetti directly out of the hot water and put it directly into the pot with the vegetables and the heavy cream. We're going to create this nice sauce, and the reason why I don't rinse my spaghetti noodles and rinse my pasta when I add it in is because this way the sauce will be adhering to those noodles, and it's going to create this nice silky sauce. And so go ahead and add your noodles in, and then next what I do is I add in some grated Parmesan cheese. Now total I'm adding in 2/3 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. This is a 1/3 cup measure, so I sprinkle in 1/3 of a cup, and then I'm going to also sprinkle in a 2/3 of a cup to get my total of 2/3 of a cup. Then you want to go from the bottom, just like I'm doing there, go from the bottom to the top, so that way we can really mix in the ingredients that we have in the bottom, and then also with those hot pasta noodles. And you see how we're starting to create this really nice sauce. And so just kind of you want to be gentle because you don't want to disturb your vegetables too much, but go from the bottom to the top, mix everything around just like that. You're going to sprinkle in that Parmesan cheese, and so we're going to have that nice cheesiness. We're going to also have that nice creaminess from the heavy cream. And I like to finish my pasta primavera off with a couple of tablespoons of fresh chopped flat leaf Italian parsley. I'm going to mix that in as well. And as our pasta continues to cool, our sauce will thicken up, so I do like to reserve a little bit of that pasta cooking liquid to thin out the pasta and the sauce if need be. I'm going to go ahead and serve us up some. This is what our plate's looking like. It's looking so good. I cannot wait to go ahead and share this with y'all. And this first bite's going to be for you. And this meal also works great if you decide to do a little chicken breast grilled on the side or some grilled salmon. Well, this first bite's for you. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. Y'all, this comes out so good. How I make my spaghetti pasta salad. These are the ingredients that I'm going to be using. I'll also share with you different little pro tips that I have learned when I make my spaghetti pasta salad. And this is a great salad to have, especially during the spring and summertime for all the picnics and backyard barbecues. So I have my water. I'm going to put some salt in my water when we boil the spaghetti, so that way we can season up our spaghetti a bit. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome in, and if you're a returner, welcome back. My name is Dyvonne, and this is my channel, Cooking for the Family. Love to share what I cook and bake for my family in my kitchen, and this is one of my favorite all-time recipes. You can tweak it to your liking, and best of all, it travels well. So in my pot, and I have about 8 cups of water, I put 1/2 teaspoon of regular table salt, and I have 1 pound of spaghetti noodles. These are just regular spaghetti noodles. And what I did was I broke the noodles in half. And so you want to break the noodles in half when you make this pasta salad. Now, in addition to making it with spaghetti, I've also made my pasta salad with It's the round noodles. I can't think of the noodles right now. It's the round noodles. I think they're called the rotini noodles, but it's the round noodles. And so I've made those with those spiral noodles before. So I cooked my spaghetti until it was just a little bit past al dente, and then I'm going to drain it. And so after I drain it, once it's cooked, I drain it, and then I'm going to rinse it off with some cold water. And so we're going to rinse our pasta, and we're going to let it totally drain, and so that way we can make sure that there's no excess water when we make our pasta salad. And those spiral noodles, I said round noodles, but I meant to say spiral noodles. If you know what type of noodle that is, put it down below in the comments for me. And so once we do that, I'm going to let this drain just kind of sit. In my pasta salad, I like to put the red onion. And I'm going to share with you a quick pro tip. Now I have here a bowl of water that I also have ice cubes in. Now, if you've ever put raw onions in your green salad or in your pasta salad, and sometimes the onion, it can be overpowering for sure, and really just kind of take over all of the flavors of the salad. And so as a pro tip, what you can do is this. Once you slice your onion, and I'm just going to do them like in just slivers, just kind of half moon, we're going to put them inside of a bowl of water with ice. Now I do this first before we start to work with the other ingredients. That's because you want the onions to sit in that ice cold water for at least 15 minutes up to about 30 minutes. You want them to do that. What the cold water does, it's going to help to bring down that pungency of the raw onion in the salad, and so it's not going to overpower the rest of the flavors and won't overpower your salad. And so for the raw onion, for the red onion that I used, that was about a third of the red onion, and I had a medium-sized red onion, but you can put as much or as little as you like. Now for the cucumber, I'm using an English cucumber. This was a pretty large size cucumber, so you want to use anywhere from, we're going to cut up about 1 cup up to about 2 cups. Now with this salad, one thing that when it comes to this pasta salad, it wasn't even a recipe that I ever wrote down. I just kind of just started putting it together, and so these are the ingredients that are always my main focus ingredients, and then you can always add different ingredients to your liking. So when it comes to the cucumber, I like to slice the cucumber in these little triangle shapes, and when it comes to your salad, it's nice to kind of have different things cut in different shapes. It really helps to give a nice dimension to the salad. In this recipe, you can use this as a guide to, you can add additional ingredients to the recipe, or either you can take the same ingredients and add more of or less of, depending on your liking. So I have here my grape tomatoes. You can use grape or cherry tomatoes, and I sliced those in half, and that was about a cup that I used. And then with the black olives, I'm also slicing my black olives in half, and then these are the olives that I'm using right here. And I went on and I drained my olives because I don't want any excess. So I went on and I drained the olives because I'm going to use the majority of these olives. Now I'm going to also use some green olives because I like to use 2 different kind of olives in my salad, and I'm using the green olives that have the red pimento in the inside. I went on and sliced those straight in half, and also once I sliced them in half, I used about a cup. This is my salami I'm using. It's a 4-ounce pack of Italian dry salami, and I'm also going to be using some of the hard salami, and this is also a dry salami. I like to use the dry salamis and the hard salamis when I'm making the salad. You want to use 2 different types of salami. You can use up to 4 different types. You can use pepperoni. And I like to slice my salami different ways based on the type of salami I'm using. Sometimes I'll do strips. This one I'm just going to slice in half, and each type of salami I use, I slice it or cut it a different way, so when it's in the salad, my guests can see that, oh, it's different salami that's in there, that all the salami is not the same. I've also used low sodium salami. Low sodium salami works also very well. And then I just separate the pieces just like this. And for that, I'm also using, once it's sliced, to measure it out. If I were to put it in a cup, it would be about a cup that I have. And I could always add more because I still have more in my package. I can always add more. Now with the 4-ounce pack of the Italian dry salami, I'm going to cut those into fourths because it's a different one. So I'm going to cut this into fourths. Now something else is that it's a 4-ounce pack. I'm going to use the entire 4-ounce pack for the salad. And the first salami I used, the hard salami, I got that from Aldi's. I don't know if you have it. If you have an Aldi's by you, they're kind of all over the country now. But I got that from Aldi's, and it was like $3 and change. And it gives you a pretty good amount. Like by us, it was $3 and change. It gives you a pretty good amount of the hard salami in that pack. Now with the Italian dry salami, they also have that at Aldi's, but you can pretty much find Italian dry salami a lot of places. But the hard salami, that's where I've gotten it from for the best price. And be sure to separate your salami pieces. Now I have my cheese. I have Monterey Jack, and I also have a medium cheddar cheese. You can also use, I've used before as well, mozzarella cheese that I've cut into chunks. And with the cheese, you want to use 2 8-ounce packs of cheese that you're going to slice into square pieces. In the description box below, I will have a list of all the ingredients you need to make this spaghetti pasta salad. And I like to cut my cheese slices, my cheese pieces about this size. That's about the size of, say, like a dime, around about there. And I do the same with my cheddar cheese. This is a medium block cheddar cheese. You can also use a mild cheddar cheese. So I find either the medium or the mild cheddar cheese, those work good along with the Monterey Jack cheese. And then you can always substitute the Monterey Jack cheese for the mozzarella cheese. Then I have some fresh parsley that I had from my garden. And this is Italian flat leaf parsley. It grows abundantly in my garden, so you'll see me use it often, and I love using it. That's nice fresh herbs. And we're going to be using about 2 to 3 tablespoons. Now, if you don't have any fresh flat leaf parsley, you can also use dried parsley, and you'd want to use about 1 teaspoon to about 2 teaspoons. So I'm going to drain our red onions, and then once I drain them, I take a nice clean paper towel and I go into my colander and I just dry off and make sure that I dry off any excess water. So because we're going to be putting this right on top of our cheese and our other ingredients, so you want to make sure that you don't have a bunch of excess water. So dry off your onions. Then our pasta is nice, it's cooled off, it's drained well, and it's going to be just slightly sticky, and that's okay because we're going to be adding our other ingredients on top of it. So I have here some fresh black pepper, and I like to do about 3 to 4 grinds of the fresh pepper right on top of the spaghetti. And then next we're going to be adding in our dressing. Now there's different dressings on the market, but this is the one that I've probably been using now for about 15-20 years or so. I love using this Cheese Fantastico, and this one is the light one. It comes regular and it comes light. I'm using the light one, and you're going to end up using the entire bottle, but we don't put the entire bottle in at one time. So right there I used about 2/3 of the bottle. Then I put in a couple of tablespoons of my fresh parsley. Then I'm also going to be using some Parmesan cheese. And so our grated Parmesan cheese, we're going to be putting in 1/4 of a cup of grated Parmesan cheese, and then we'll also put some on top for garnish later on. Now you can make this salad the day before. It keeps excellent. It keeps for several days in the refrigerator with no problem. And so you can definitely make this the day before if you like. So once I have my ingredients, I use my big spoon. I go from the bottom to the top, just like I'm doing there, and you see that it makes a good amount of pasta salad. Now if you aren't making for a big crowd, because this will easily feed a dozen people or plus, if you're not going to be making it for a big crowd or a party, you can always cut the ingredients in half and just use half the box of the spaghetti noodles and half of all the other ingredients. Now next what I do is once I have everything mixed, and I went from the bottom to the top, mixed everything, I put a little bit more of my dressing, and then I still have about 1/4 of the bottle left. I put a little bit more, so then I have 1/4 of the bottle left. This is what our salad is looking like. That 1/4 of a bottle of dressing I have left, we're going to save that, and right before it's time to serve, I'm going to add that last 1/4 of dressing to the salad and give it one more stir before my guests enjoy it. Now you see why this is my go-to pasta salad. My guests like it. Our family has 3 different, we have family reunion, we have a church picnic, all coming up this summer. This salad is going to be accompanying me to all 3 of those different events that we have going on this summer. Well, I'm going to serve y'all up some and give y'all the first bite. And I always like to make this the first thing in the morning, put in the refrigerator, let it chill, and then we have it later on that afternoon or early evening. Or either I will make this the day before if we're going to go to a picnic that next day. Well, this is the bite. I have a little bit of everything. Go ahead and take your bite. Now I'm going to take my bite and see how we did. It is very light and fresh tasting. The onions have not overpowered the dish, so definitely go ahead and soak them in that cold ice water. We're going to be having this tonight with some grilled chicken that my husband is making. My niece is coming over with her kids, and so we are just going to enjoy some nice family time today. And if you like some more side dish recipes, I will put a link to my playlist for side dishes, and I have a wonderful baked bean recipe, which easy with just a few ingredients. Well, that is it for me today. If you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to show it some love and give it a thumbs up and click share. Share this video with a friend or family. And remember, it's always good when Dyvonne is cooking for the family. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.